Morning Tada, morning Paina, morning.
Hello.
Hello Tada.
Hello, everybody.
Hi Paina. Hi Sita. Nopadom. Good Nopadom.
Ay, ay.
Dika Jan.
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
Morning Sal.
Morning everybody
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
Please, Priya.
Waiting eagerly. Sarah, do you remember anything hanging over from previous weeks that we could start with?
I can start with a topic. We discussed a lot about asavas, Jan, and one comment was made was about in the sense door process, how usually it's lobha or ignorance immediately that arises after the vipaka chitas and the vodapana. And I mentioned the example of thunder and how there could be dosa instantly. And there was a bit of a discussion about how this might be just mind door. But anyway, it doesn't really matter because the mind door follows so quickly. But when I checked in the Abhidhamma, it showed that all 29 Kamawachara Javana chitas arise in the sense door process. That means any of the 12 akusala chitas, the 8 kinds of lobha, the 2 kinds of dosa, the 2 kinds of moha, any of the 8 kinds of kusala, with or without panya, with or without pleasant feeling, strong or weak, or the 8 Kiriya Chitas, any of the 8 Kiriya Chitas of the Arahat, or the Hasitupata of the Arahat. So even though it's not of any great significance, it seems that instantly dosa or any kind of akusala can arise immediately in the sense door process. I'm wondering if you have any comment, because we were discussing about why the asavas, just the lobha and ignorance and wrong view are emphasized, and someone asked, what about dosa? So it seems it can arise straight away.
When dosa arises, it's not asava. It can arise, but it's not asava because
Right.
the way it appears, it's not just like those asava at all.
So it arises, but it's not classified as asava, because there was a bit of misunderstanding because it sounded like it couldn't arise in the sense door process, but like when hearing thunder, instantly there can be dosa
Exactly what
arising straight away.
arises.
Yes.
whether they are dosa or other reality. But it's not just like the asava before, unknown. But when dosa is there, it's known.
More apparent.
So can we say the significance of the asavas is that although they are arising, they're not apparent? Not so much that they arise immediately in the sense door before arising in the mind door also, but it's just the level at which they arise is so weak as to be not capable of being discerned.
It means that even one think that one doesn't have akusala at all, but it's there, unknown as asava. But when mana is there or something is there, it's different from the four. Like clinging to a being, see, anytime, even right now, always I, unknown. Why there is such belief or underline as I? Because of asava is there. Because Buddha taught about the degrees of akusala as anusaya. It does not arise at all. It's there as condition for the arising of the akusala. But when the first javana, or the moment when what is experienced is there, when it is other moment with other reality, like dosa and so on, it can be known. So that is not asava. But that which is there cannot be known, even right now, is asava. That's
But is
why
it
Buddha
not
pointed
possible
out
for
how many asavas are there.
is it not possible for dosa to arise at a level that can't be known?
It can be known, no matter how very slight it is, right? It
Well,
can
what
be known.
about mana? That could certainly, I would have thought, arise at a level that can't be known.
I think that as soon as mana arises, it's known, even it's so very slight.
So there's a distinct difference then between some kinds of akusala and other kinds in this respect, or is it just that the Buddha wanted to emphasize certain kinds of akusala when he classified them as asavas and didn't want to include others, not because they can't be known, but because that wasn't the point of that particular classification, was to emphasize certain kinds of akusala only.
It seems like nothing is there as akusala, see? That's why people think that they don't have akusala, because they don't know that even at that very moment, which does not appear as something like liking so much and so on, but it's there as clinging to the self, to the idea of that, to the idea of I, at moment of no matter it is seeing or hearing. So very quickly. That's why it's just like magician. No one knows what's there at all from moment to moment, very, very quickly. But what Buddha taught is about when Nusya hasn't been eradicated yet. What condition, even such moment when there is seeing, hearing, and so on. As usual, that people think that they don't have any attachment or anything at all, but it's there already.
So, Ajahn, are you referring to the difference in the characteristic of those dhammas that are asava and those that are not? That often the ones that are asava are not recognized. People think they don't have lobha and they don't even moha does not even appear, and ditti appears as good to people with ditti, whereas dosa and mana anyone can recognize as akusala. Is that the difference?
Because you see that there are so many degrees of akusala and kusala accumulated. That's why it's there. like what Buddha said, intoxicant and so on, just the comparison, just to how much is there ready to comes out, see, ooze, whatever is there, at, impinge on such doorway. See, it's the unknown. To know that even it seems like there's no akusla, what is there? What is there? Clinging to being, clinging to sensuous object, and clinging to ignorance. Excuse me, not ignorance, because when it's ignorance, it's there, not clinging. That's why there are how many kinds of asava, kamasava, clinging to sense object, tittasava, bhavasava, clinging to to being, and tittasava and avijjasava. See, even it's there. See, unknown. Avijja cannot be known as asava. But even right now, when there is attachment, does anyone know anything about asava? That's why Buddha taught about asava is there as avijja, but not as upadana. See, different levels of each one. That who knows about asava, different from upadana, because upadana cannot be avijja upadana, but as asava is there. Just learn about this moment, whether there is asava or not. Even it seems like there's no akusala at all, but it's there. And what is there? Who knows? Avijjasava, kamasava, for those who do not have ditthasava anymore, because it has been eradicated. So we just talk about that which is the unknown, and the doubt about it is there. But when panya is there, enough, strong enough, there's less doubt about what is there as is taught, until it's the moment of eradication of doubt about the nama and rupa and what is there as self. No more, that's all. So even after Sotapanna experiences the sensuous object or whatever dowry, there is still kamasava, but no ditthasava, and no avijja at level which it arises with ditti, less and less avijja, but it's still there as long as there is clinging to kamasava, sensuous object, and being, to be eradicated later. When panya is stronger, understand better and better about the danger of birth or of the arising of Dhamma. So we just learn to understand different levels of akusala and Dhammas. This is thinking about whether dosa can be asava and so on. But the truth is that, what is there now? Dosa does not appear, it's not there. But when it appears even just very slightly, it is known. Very, very slight, unpleasant feeling.
I was going to say one reason, Sukin, that dosa is not asava, but can arise in sense object. One reason why it's more apparent is because always unpleasant feeling. So it cannot be taken for kusala, even it's very, very slight irritation. There is unpleasant feeling, domanassa, at that moment. It's more apparent. So it's not asava, but it arises straight away in the sense door process. Like if there's sudden noise now, instant dosa, however slight. One reason I brought up this topic was because a friend Sundara mentioned at the end of a discussion on one of the sessions, just at the end, but no time to pursue it, about how there's always attachment to unpleasant object in the sense door, but I may have misheard it. But of course, when it's an unpleasant object, usually there is dosa instantly in that sense door process. When it's something tasted that's unpleasant, dosa immediately, even though it's not asava.
So at that time, there would not be asava, right? When the situation you just mentioned, Sarah. Taste something, it's unpleasant, dosa, but there would not.
Not asava at the same moment, because the javana heat, it can either be with, if it's a kusala, it's either with loba or just with ignorance or with dosa. So if the chitta arises with dosa, instant aversion to the unpleasant taste, like a mouthful of chili, instant dosa. So no asava at that moment, because no clinging, no wrong view, no ignorance on its own at that moment of dosa. So I think it's an important point to clarify, because I think some people had the idea that it's always asava when it's a kusala chitta in the sense door process, but not so.
And there's the aspect of asava that we say it's oozing. What is this oozing?
Kun Sukin, is it the same question as Anusia? Whether now, at moment of getting angry, is there no anusia?
There is anusaya even when there is no anger. Even when attachment arises, there's anusaya for anger.
Can we say that we just talk about life, daily life, at any moment, when whatever appears, it beyond being asava, right? But is there asava there? We have to understand what is asava. Lopa is there. There must be lopa, no matter what degree. But when we talk about the difference between sanyoshana and nivarana and so on, it means that akusala is so big enough or enough to appear. For example, as a little fruit, mango, is there just arise, and then it develops to go bigger and bigger. Is there no aswa and no taste of mango? But it's stronger that we use that word to indicate how much different levels is there.
Achan, are you saying it's in the case of asava, it's like it's more ready to come out than those which are not asava?
That's it. That's why usually in a day it seems like there's no akusala, but it's there, unknown. When it's not wholesome and the object is experience, what is there? Not just only the experiencing citta, but there must be other cetasikas as well for performing the function. What about the taste of the little mango? And when it's ripe, different. But the taste of that is there. We cannot say that there's no taste that of that degree.
Yes, Achan.
And I think oozes out means like seeps out or trickles out little bit, little bit, little bit. So I think this is the meaning, that the attachment, the ignorance, it's so slight, it's not apparent, but it's seeping out, conditioned by the anusyas, which are latent, just conditions this gradual seeping out of loba or ignorance or wrong view.
Is that wrong view now? See, it's unknown. It's something all the time after seeing. So it seems like it has to be there. People and things all around. Avijjasava, see, it's the unknown, not understanding what is there as it is, and cling to that as its object, like it so much, live with it from birth to this moment, see. And there is the idea of self and thing all the time. Even there's, it does not appear so big enough to great enough, strong enough to know, to be known as it's there, as anger or whatever, or like or dislike. But it's there, what is there? Just arise after the process of Dawei. It's there. Experience what is there. It's so very, very fast, very, very rapidly. It's there already. Seep out. See, who knows? It's gone because it's gone. Many processes, and the idea of something is even right now to understand what is meant by asava.
And mana is not like this. Mana, when it arises, it's more apparent. Is that what you were saying? Mana is not in asava.
Just for, see, what Buddha taught, which can be known right now. The dasava, something all the time. Things around are something. Asava is there. But who knows? It's so natural, unknown, until when it to that degree, higher degree, it is conditioned to be more than just asava. So it can be upadana or nivarana or samyojana, okha, and so on. Just the same fact, same mental factor, same cetasika, with different degrees. So when one heard about asava, one knows it's there now. As long as it does not appear as it is strong enough to appear. Like when you like something, but before that, just wake up. Something is the object right then, unknown, asava, avijjasava. See, to understand the truth that how much kilesa is there, even while one is fast asleep or wake up and then on, eating and so on, all day, or dhammas, different degrees. Otherwise, one might think that one doesn't have any akusala, but so very good people, good person. But actually, avijja is there, lopa is there, ditthi is there.
Sarah, hello.
Sandra, yes.
Yeah.
Sandra.
I was just a tad late. Just want to clarify. So and I heard you mention something that I'd said, and I was just trying to locate why I said it. But can you go back? You were saying that, as I understood it, that when there's an unpleasant object, did you say that there will always be dosa, even in the sense thought process?
No, I said that dosa can arise in the sense thought process. And usually if it's an unpleasant object, for example, unpleasant taste, like a very sour taste or bitter taste, for example, usually dosa will arise instantly. Of course, for the Arahat, no dosa will arise. For the Anagami, no dosa. But usually for us, if it's an unpleasant taste, dosa will arise. There's not usually attachment to the unpleasant object. Whereas I think that I brought this topic up partly because I think that what you said, and I checked it again was that I understood you to be saying that attachment arises to unpleasant objects, that attachment has to arise in the sense door process, not aversion. And you gave the example of the Markandeya Sutta and the example of the first process in life when attachment arises. But any akusala can arise in a sense door process. It's just that when we're talking about the asavas, as the Jam explained, it doesn't include dosa. It's just referring to the very subtle attachment, wrong view, and ignorance. And people
Okay,
sometimes
just a moment,
misunderstand
Sarah,
this. Yes.
I don't think I said the sense door process, but I may have done. What I was prompted to say that was because I understand that even when there is birth in a hell world, the first moment is attachment. Is that correct?
That's correct. In any life, the first process of citas arises with clinging to bhava, clinging to just existing. Yes.
So you're saying that it's not necessarily clinging to the object that may appear in that sense, in that realm.
It's
you're
just
saying
clinging to being, clinging to existing. Yes.
Why I mention this is because the Buddha in that sutta said, he was speaking to Markandeya, he said, and it's located at Chakumko Markandeya Rupa Ramam, Rupa Ratam, Rupa Sam Mudditam, which means eyes, Markandeya, enjoy pleasant objects, take delight in, and are happy with it. So I was kind of assuming from that, and also why I came to this conclusion to some extent anyway, and it's good that it's come up so it can be clarified, is that the word aramana, the root of that word aramana means means to delight in. And I guess it could be just a kind of a generic term to mean that we delight in objects, generally speaking. So I was presuming that mostly, even when the object is unpleasant, and we know that's true because there are some people who like unpleasant things, by way of taste. If it's chilly, they like hot things. Perhaps initially there might be some dosa. That's possible too. But, there are a lot of people, they go to those rock band concerts, so they've got horribly loud noises. And they have attachment, but they will probably immediately have dosa. So
dosa instantly in the sense door process, and then thinking about it with attachment later.
Yes, okay. All right. So when the Buddha has said to Markandeya, that phrase that is said, Chakumko, Markandeya, etc., Rupam Ramam, so we delight in the eyes, Chakum, Markandeya, they delight in, and they pleased with, they're happy with the objects. So we're referring there to the attachment that follows after dosa. It can be pure attachment sometimes anyway, in that sense or process. That certainly makes sense. But you're saying that with those unpleasant objects, then there will be dosa, and then immediately after, in the mind or processes, there will be attachment to it.
Like in the Markandeya, I don't have it in front, but I remember it says something like they delight in that which was desired, or something like that. So it's what one wishes, and then one gets it, and it's a condition for attachment. But in the example of the rock band or even thunder, instant dosa to the loud noise. But one thinks about it, and one might think, oh, that was an exciting experience with attachment afterwards.
Yes, that can certainly come.
And in other suttas, like I remember in the simile of the lute, it refers to, I put this in a post to you before, but you might not have seen it. If any bhikkhu desire or lust or hatred or delusion or aversion should arise with regard to forms cognizable by the eye, So any akusala can arise in the sense door process. And the fact that in the first process of every life, even in a hell realm, there's clinging to being, doesn't mean that as soon as sense door process arises, there can be aversion instantly to the unpleasant objects.
So I didn't quite follow. Sorry, Sarah, I didn't quite follow that. So you're saying that
In the hell realm,
yes,
the first process in life, the first mind or process, the first process is a mind or process with clinging to existing, and then mind or processes. And then if a sense door process interrupts the Bhavanga Chitas, there may be, and with an unpleasant object, there may be instant aversion because of the realm one's in.
though as we've kind of agreed that wouldn't. So I just want to clarify this. So you're saying it would be impossible if the object was unpleasant to have attachment to it, to have karmas, to have attachment to it. Sarah, are you
Sarah,
there?
we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I'm not saying impossible, but one would think even if it's an unpleasant visible object, it would be followed by aversion, but who knows? All one can say is any akusala can arise if there are conditions and accumulations, and if it hasn't been eradicated. Yes. Definitely in the case of loud thunder or loud noise in a rock constant, then clearly, or a very unpleasant taste like a mouthful of chili, then usually it would be bound to be dosa that would follow. But I think it's a very helpful point that Ajahn made, that the reason the asavas are stressed and the reason that dosa is not an asava is because the dosa is more apparent, the unpleasant feeling is more apparent, but the lobha and the ignorance and the wrong views seep out, trickle out, completely unknown. And because there's pleasant feeling or neutral feeling, usually people have no idea there's any akusala at those times.
Okay,
anyway,
thank
thanks.
you.
Yeah, I was appreciative that you brought up the point before, and it's good to clarify and discuss these points. So thanks, Ajahn. Thanks, Sundra.
Yeah, it's interesting because the word aramana just means to delight in. I suppose it's generic sense that we generally do delight in objects, and of course, there is aversion, of course, sometimes when we're not getting what we want, or any other number of variables on that theme. Okay. And so, Kin, you mentioned the word asava. The root of that word is su, which means to flow. Like to flow hidden underneath. It's like and I believe this is an educated guess that we get the word sewer in English from it. It's like it flows underneath. And it's often translated as an outflow, but it's often translated as oozing out. And probably what Sarah said seemed to fit in that respect. But of course, we know all these concepts, whatever word we use, that's not about what the understanding of the reality is about, but it is helpful to obviously to talk about them so we can get better understanding of them. And that's been helpful. Thank you, Sarah.
And Sukin, in respect of something you said in this context, I think that the oozing is not so much a characteristic of the reality, but just a reflection of the level of its intensity. Yes, so very, very weak at that moment, but nevertheless still there. And also the fact that it's continual, it's there so much of the time. So, but it's not related to the characteristic of the reality as such, because each of those asavas has a different characteristic.
And just back on the Margandhya Sundra, it makes the point that this is when the objects are those wished for, desired, agreeable, likable, connected with desire and provocative of lust. Usually
Right.
no one wishes for an unpleasant object, so it's referring to those that are liked and agreeable and wished for.
Yeah, okay. That is possibly true. I know sometimes, look, increasingly, Sarah, and I'm not, that makes some sense, that when I often read translation these days, sometimes the interpretation is very, well, I shall put it this way, it's interesting, and I don't find them always helpful, and I sometimes see them as being wrong, but because in the case there, it just says, mind you, and I haven't got the whole sutta, it just says chakumko, which obviously just means the eye. Then he says Margandhya, Ruparamam, the eye delights in visual object, literally. Ruparatam, we are very pleased with it or take delight in that object. And there is samuditam, rupa samuditam, so that's where we get the word mudita from. We rejoice in that pleasant object. So they're often translated in different ways, but that's why I often find the Pali a lot more clearer. But they could have gone on. What you were saying there as a translation could be further on in the sutta, and I haven't got that. I just wrote down that initial part because I was interested in that particular one, and perhaps it's a good example of taking things out of context, which I may have done here. So I appreciate you bringing that up again.
And I'd just like to make one further comment, or perhaps this is a question to Ajahn, that, for example, the akusala tendencies can be classified, I'm just checking in the Abhidhamma Sangha, are classified as asavas, oga, yoga, ganta, ties, upadana, clinging, nivarana, the hindrances, anusya, latent dispositions, sangyojana, the fetters, kilesa, defilements. And there are a certain number of each of those classifications. But whether these are, they are helpful classifications, but not necessarily reflecting any essential difference between the different kinds of akusala, because but just ways of explaining or highlighting different kinds of akusala. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Thank you,
For
Ajahn.
example, just talk about one aspect, please, one by one, just one now. About the
Well, we were talking
classification.
about asava. That's what
Yes.
that's what I wondered whether, because basically I'm wondering whether
Jonathan,
it's possible
Ajahn is just asking. Yeah, Ajahn was just asking what those classifications were, and she asked for you just to say them one by one.
Yes, I understand that question, and I'm
Oh, I
explaining
see.
that the reason I'm asking it is because of the asava, and wondering whether it, just because there are only 4 asavas, whether it necessarily means that other kinds of akusala cannot be arising at a level which are not noticeable. For example, that was what prompted me to ask this, because okay, let's take another one, the nivarana, hindrances.
It just shows the difference between akusala, for example, as asava for asava, as okha for okha too, the same, right?
Yes.
But why different words? Because the way it's function or what everyone says, it also like flood all the time, flood one away from kusala, not just being the asava, but it also perform even like the function of flood.
Hello, come on, okay.
Yes, but if we
Who
take,
knows that now one is flooded by all these aswa, and it performs also the characteristic, or another angle is floody or oka as well. And the other aura.
so let's take hindrances then. For example, hindrances do not include wrong view, for example, but it can't be said that wrong view is not a hindrance to the development of understanding, or even perhaps to, maybe it's not a hindrance to the development of samatha. I don't know.
For samatha, for sure, but we have to understand too at what moment it hinder. See, that's why just talk about what is there now in different aspects, by way of flood, by way of ashwa, by way of many aspects too.
Right. So these are all helpful because they're different ways of looking at the various kinds of akusala.
Yes.
So hindrances include ignorance, but not wrong view. But
because
that's just the way that's just because the purpose is to emphasize certain kinds of akusala when talking about hindrances.
At moment of developing, for example, calmness, see, what is there? Nothing to do with wrong view, right?
Right.
But what is there? Kama chanda, just like so much to hinder the development of samatha. But for vipassana, anything has to be the object, otherwise it cannot be eradicated.
Right. But ignorance is there among the hindrances, and that wouldn't be an obstacle to development of samatha, as far as I understand it.
Cannot, but because all these can be object of right understanding.
Yes.
Otherwise, it cannot be eradicated.
Right. Thank you, Ajahn.
Just to show the different aspect of reality as one cetasika, to understand it better, what is there at that very moment. One is flooded all the time by these four and so on, as asava or as upadana or as yoga or as oka or nibrana. All they unknown. That's why what has to be eradicated must be anusaya, which condition the moment of akusala to arise.
And I have another question to bring up also, if we can move on. Does anyone else want to comment on this topic before moving on to something else? The Sotapanna has eradicated all wrong view about the true nature of present moment reality. But the understanding of the characteristics of conditioned realities as anicca, dukkha, and anatta has not been fully developed yet by the Sotapanna, because that full development occurs just prior to full enlightenment of the Arahant. And as I understand it, one of those three characteristics becomes the gateway to final enlightenment. Is that correct, Ajahn?
And please say it again, little by
Yes.
little.
I was saying that the Sotapanna has eradicated all wrong view about the true nature of present moment
Never has
realities.
such wrong view about reality, which arises in force way by three characteristic at all.
Right. But so then I'm moving on to ask about the understanding of the three characteristics of conditioned realities, anicca, dukkha, anatta. That understanding continues to be developed after stream entry until it's time for final enlightenment of the Arahat.
Because you see that even we are talking about what is there now as it is conditioned, rising and falling away, but it's so very, very weak. Even when one heard about it more and more and more, it's still there. As long as Panya is not strong enough to understand the path, which is so very, very subtle. We just think about experiencing the three characteristics, but how can it show up? Because it's now just like that. That's why there can be more understanding of conditions for Panya to develop. For example, to be truthful to the truth, it has to be what is there now, has to be studied, developing understanding to understand it as it is, but not by the idea of self. See, even the beginning is very subtle, not by the self or the idea of self, even it's there as anusya and aswa, who knows, but the understanding is more firm about conditions for the arising of panya. So in a day, see, in a day, each one is truthful enough to whatever is there in life, not just the truth of this moment. Even that is part of me, because otherwise it is akusla, covers up the truth again and again and again. So in order to understand that it's not me or anyone, but it's right understanding only, which develop from hearing, considering, and in a day, one knows oneself better than the other. How many moments of thinking about that which is now appearing? None at all. That's why one that can be the beginning of understanding to be truthful to the truth as anatta, not doing anything to hurry, to rush, to understand it. It's impossible. That is lopa. See, the way it is, very crafty lopa. Change from this object to another object all the time. And even we're talking about only one characteristic like feeling or memory. What about the other factors which is there? For example, lopa. Does it appear as it is? Only the name in mind, thinking about it. But the characteristic of it, which clings now as asava or whatever degrees is there, unknown. As it is, even it's there. Or it is there enough to be known. But no panya, no understanding it as it is. That's why understanding about the being truthful to the truth, never to change the mind to do anything at all, or even thinking about it, and then there is attachment to such moment, or it's good time to know it. It's there again and again and again and again. It follows any moment of whatever is experienced at that very moment. That's why Panya has to be strong enough to understand and be truthful to the meaning of anattanness. So it's like going against the current of ignorance and attachment. But Panya can develop little by little because of being truthful to the truth.
Yes, that anattanness you mentioned, Ajahn, is a characteristic of conditioned realities. And the Sotapanna continues to develop the understanding of the three characteristics. And that understanding eventually, at the time of enlightenment as Arahat, one of those three characteristics becomes the gateway for final enlightenment. Is that how it happens?
It seems like it's so short, but actually it's so long, because even before the characteristic of the arising and falling again can be known, there must be moment unexpectedly, nothing there at all, different world of nothing, only what is there, just one at a time, different characteristic. One cannot experience because the experience is there, no shape, no form, no whatever is heard or seen at all. It's just a rise to experience, thinking, imagine the characteristic of that reality, which no shape, no form, no sound, nothing, but it experiences. And at that moment, the object of experiencing is not the other thing, but only that which experiences. So, and this is not in a day so much. After having experienced such stage, it does not arise again because lots of akusla accumulated after that, on and on appearing to have more confidence of anatta, no thing, no one. But it's so short, so very short, not like so many things around like now. So many processes, many jittas arising and falling. But it's only a nimitta of a reality, no matter it is rupa or nama. So how short it is comparing to the accumulation of ignorance and attachment and other akusala. That's why it's just very weak, even that, because it is the first vipassana yana. It is taruna vipassana yana, as strong as the vipassana yana after the uttayappiya yana, the
So,
experience, the
Ajahn,
arising.
if the
See,
Sotapanna
it
has
takes time.
eradicated, if the Sotapanna has eradicated all wrong view of self, does that mean that the characteristic of anatta, of conditioned realities, doesn't need to be further developed?
The characteristic of akusala appears more in a day because today, when it's not the panya of that degree, it does not appear as it is. It appears as it's used to take it for something all the time. So panya is that it's not enough to eradicate the wrong understanding or attachment or ignorance which arises with it. But it can begin, just begin to experience, to apply that understanding to daily life. But how many moments? Because moments of akusla are more than that by conditions. That's why no wrong understanding, no wrong path to do anything, but understanding and to be patient for that which can be experienced again. See, not at will at all, and only just flash of that is not enough because everything comes again as usual, the world of things around and people around. But it's not forget. It cannot be forgotten because it's direct experience with that level of panya. But it's not strong enough to fight, if you use this word, to conditions accumulated to be akusala, attachment, and whatever it is, because it's only the first moment of understanding what is meant by that which experiences and that which cannot experience, only that. And just it does not arise all day or more in a day, not at all. But it's strong enough not to be forgotten. But it has to apply to daily life by conditions. How difficult, how hard it is to go against the current of the I who can do or who is doing all the time, even at that moment. See, this now, this moment now, see. When it does not appear, and when it appears again, if one wishes for it, Lopa is there again. That's why in the beginning the path is not as smooth because of so much attachment and ignorance accumulated to arise on and on and on. But that is not forgotten, the moment of understanding what is the true world. Nothing at all, only a characteristic which is the nimitta of the experiencing and the metta of the object, different ones. See, what are in between? Pawanka citta and other citta is there as nimitta of the experiencing. So even the word experience and object When it does not appear, it does not show up. It's just the idea. It's still the idea because it's not the appearing of that object, of that reality as object of understanding. So it takes time. And when we talk about the second jhana, Pajjaparikha jhana, it does mean that at that moment there is the name and understanding of each of anyone Pajja at all. But it's the understanding to let go that is because of Pajja. So it is there by then, as it truly is. See, so it's the development of Panya to let go what is there now, which is not known as it is yet, but the way the way is without the experiencing of an object right now and the understanding from hearing and considering and have more confidence of the truth, that the truth can be known only when it appears. And now what appears? Anything can be object of understanding, developing by conditions. That's why by conditions, and it's there now, and it develops, not I develop at all, little by little, before it can let go, even just very, very slight wrong understanding. Because how much wrong understanding has been accumulated from eons and eons and eons ago. That's why Buddha said before he passed away that there shouldn't be underestimating anything. Have sati, not be careless for everything, even listening to Dhamma. So very, very subtle because we are now learning about the truth of that which is now appearing and the pattaya for the appearance of what is now appearing. But it develops, it's implanted in mind and develop little by little until it's strong enough. And at that moment, when the object appears, show up as it is in Vipassana Jhana, no idea of any name or word at all, but understanding about anatta, very sudden, unexpected. See, and it has to be like this. Otherwise, it's not the way it is. That's why Panya develops on and on and on and on from understanding what can be understood or develop understanding as it is, like hardness now, seeing now, hearing now, whatever is that now. Only when there is more understanding, it can be moment of directly understand what is there now by conditions unexpectedly, whether it is hearing or hardness or thinking or like or dislike, by conditions to understand that each reality we're talking about is just like that, only there and then gone. And the characteristic of that which appears cannot be changed at all. And what is there is just like now. No need to try to look for somebody Channa, Santirana, or they cannot appear. Because what appears now is that which is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. That's why Buddha taught by way of near and far reality, inside or outside and so on, just to make it known as it is, for Panya to begin to develop the understanding of the truth that actually it's only conditioned to appear, arising, and then falling away, never to return until the truth shows up unexpectedly. Anatta, no one, because the absolute reality is no self and no one. Chitta must be only chitta. Cetasikas, each one is different, and rupa as it is right now. But ignorance is there now, covers up everything. And the word of the teaching is just like the light penetrating little by little before it can penetrate the truth, the arising and falling away, never to return of whatever is now appear as so very something, a flower, a door, and everything as it is, the nimitta of that which impinges on the sense star.
On a John Cup, Kun Jonathan has just reminded me of something too when he asked that question. Now, it's my understanding that the Sotapanna and all Sotapanna will be different. Now, those three characteristics, the Tilakkana, Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, each of those characteristics will be understood differently by each different Sotapanna. Is that correct, Tanajan, before I go on?
Just like now. Different?
Yes.
Each.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that all Sotapanna will have different accumulations and they will not understand all those characteristics equally well. Would that be correct, Tanajan Cup?
Do you live alone or with other people?
I live by myself.
Is that the answer?
I think were you speaking conventionally or ultimately, John? I'm not sure of the question.
Seeing right now arises and falls away, no matter in the past, present, and future, right?
Correct.
Does it belong to anyone?
No.
And when it rises and falls away, can anyone change it to be different?
Absolutely no. Of course not, John.
Do we still think about it?
Yes, I do.
And about any other thing too?
Many things, yes, because we're all different.
But what about whatever arises falls away? We don't know what will be the next object.
No. So
even that arises and falls away, no doubt.
true.
So what is the question? The question might be that after it is experienced directly to be sotapanna, eradicated all doubt and the truth of the arising and falling away of reality, but it does not appear in daily life so that it can be stronger and stronger, right?
True.
That's why who can condition a sotapanna to think this way or to live that way all depends on conditions. Each one has one's own accumulation. That's all. As just right now, what is different between a sotapanna and the person who's not a sotapanna is that the person who hasn't been that degree of sotapanna yet has no understanding of the truth, no direct experience of the arising and falling away. But what about the accumulation of each sotapanna? It's gone, or it conditioned the moment in life as usual without wrong understanding and ignorance which arises with such understanding, such wrong understanding. No more understanding, no more wrong understanding. But life goes on as usual. So Sotapanna knows who she or he was. Not not
True.
Arahata, not
Can we?
Anagami, because there is still attachment to things.
Sure.
Until
Tanaja,
until the moment of vipassana jnana arise again at that moment because of panya, which has developed more and more and more, can attain the moment of understanding that with the danger of that to little by little to be away from sensuous object as Sakatakami and more usual life, natural life until that so vipassana jnana arise again as the what certificate or whatever it is to know that is there with more understanding of the danger of the reality which is the object. For example, even Sotapanna experience Lopa, but it doesn't see the danger of Lopa, it just see the danger of taking it for self.
Mhm. That's well. That seems strange, Ajahn, because when I think of Bhayanyana, which an arahata would know about, you're saying that there are obviously different levels of Bhaya.
Different level of Panya, right? But
Uh-huh.
who can change the characteristic which arises and falls away. When it first appearing, it is that, but Panya is not strong enough to go through the truth of it, which arises and falls away. It's just the first moment of experience that which is no self at all. It's there. The characteristic of what is the experience is only no thing, no anything at all, only that which arises and experience. But the arising and falling away of that is not penetrated yet, because it's just experience with understanding that that is the meaning of no one and no thing, no idea, no word, because it's the moment of Panya experiencing that clearly.
Can we say, Tanajan, that each of those tilakkhana will be experienced differently by each different sotapanna?
Is there any word at moment of experiencing an object, just like being right now? It's
No.
there. Is it need to have any word about it, or it is silly? See, because it's there to be known and depend on level of understanding. Never experienced before. So the understanding of that is only that degree. See, cannot go beyond that, further than that, because it's only the first experiencing of that which experiences and that which cannot experience. But the penetration, the truth has to, after Panya develop enough to let go more of ignorance from discussing, hearing, considering, and whatever is in life, and understanding the moment when it's direct awareness, direct understanding of that frame of that object, particular object. Only that, see, to be familiar with the truth as not self, little by little. But in a day, even so as life, depending on conditions. So Tapana as Ananta Bindika and Visakha Mikaramanta and so on.
Sotapanna has eradicated all wrong view. So he has no more idea of taking something as me or I. So, but the three characteristics are not yet fully developed. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. There is still continual development after stream entry of those three characteristics, and they are not fully understood until final enlightenment, as I understand it, Ajahn.
As a reality is experienced, can such experience be forgotten? Even it does not appear again. So Sotapanna doesn't have wrong view.
Right.
Lopa
But
is there. Lopa is there to be known as Lopa, little by little, and other reality which has not been known, little by little. Because in the day, what is there has to be known.
right, but the
Another
characteristic
level of light of vipassana jhana can show up from
anatta
enough
is not
now
yet fully
to show up
understood by
to
the
Panya of
Sotapanna.
that degree.
Hmm.
So even right now, Sotapanna does not forget the experiencing of the arising and falling away. But now the reality does not appear as it arises and falls away because
Right.
it's not moment of vipassana jhana. But such jhana is not lost. It's there.
Correct. Yes. But the understanding of the characteristic of anatta has not been fully developed by the Sotapanna.
That's why we use different word, vipassanayana, see, not daily vipassanayana at all. Daily life is just the way it is.
So
But
when we talk about no
experience
me,
never lost.
when we say no me, no I, that is a reflection, that is referring to the wrong view of realities. That's the kind of wrong view that has been eradicated by the Sotapanna. But when we talk about the characteristic of realities as anicca, dukkha, anatta,
It's now.
then that's different from the eradication of wrong view of self, wrong view of all kinds.
Once it has been eradicated, can it arise again?
Absolutely not.
That's why no more wrong view about that which is experienced, the arising and falling away, until there's no wrong view at all. Even if there, even attachment is there, as usual, because there are conditions for lopa to arise as anatta, see. And the way it is, followed by whatever is conditioned by accumulation, but no wrong view about
No wrong view, but still not a full understanding of the three characteristics.
What do you mean by three characteristics? Because three characteristics is the nature of realities, but depending on whether it appears as direct object or not. Even right now, no doubt about the arising and falling away after becoming a Sotapanna, because it has been directly experienced so clear.
Correct.
No doubt about it. Before it can be higher understanding, higher vipassana, before it can be moment of enlightenment, Mahayana, no more wrong view at all about the arising and falling away. But it doesn't mean that each moment is there, arising and falling away, appearing in a day. When it appears as it is vipassanayana. That's why there are different words. After vipassanayana, there is parinya, see, another word. Because even right now we're talking so much about vipassanayana and everything, but when it's not happened or arisen yet, it's not known as it is so clear, so perfect, no doubt at all at that very moment. But those who haven't experienced that, what about the understanding of the arising and falling away of whatever is now does not appear as arising and falling away?
The arahat attains final enlightenment on the basis of either the characteristic of anicca or dukkha or anatta, as I understand it.
I think that before we talk about the arahata or sotapanna, what about this moment that whatever appears now appears as something by the rapidity of the succession of the arising and falling away? Nobody can change. But what about the understanding? What degree is it is from experiencing directly as vipassana or not yet? See,
I'm just trying to ask about the difference between wrong view and the characteristic of not self, of as a characteristic of each conditioned reality.
okay, when you has tested a test and someone hasn't tested that at all, can they understand such test
No.
as it is, because it hasn't been tested yet? And the person who has tested it has no doubt about that, right? And in a day, it does not mean that vipassana arises all the time, but it's there of its own degree. What degree it is, as the one who just heard about the arising and falling away, or the one who begins to develop what is there now appearing, arises and falls away. So in order to experience directly the arising and falling away, it has to be a moment of experiencing what is there just one by one. And this is for those who understand what is meant by anicca, dukkha, and anatta, even it's not experienced yet. But once it has been experienced, no doubt about it anymore. But the danger of other reality like attachment, is it fully known? Otherwise, Sotapanna would be Arahata. But understanding that Vipassana jhana is not moment of seeing right now as usual or daily, because it is so strong, just even very short, no doubt about it, little by little. For the first Vipassana jhana, no doubt about the characteristic, which is no one and no thing at all, only that reality appearing as object, only one. So how much understanding of that, not as just listening or thinking about it, but it's there, unforgotten at all. Never forget about it. But even it does not appear, but the characteristic which has been known is there, never lost. Even it does appear that now it arises and falling away. But there are so many realities are there. For example, Sotapanna knows that there is the clinging to sensuous object. Even it arises and falls away, but as is not directly experienced with higher understanding, because the understanding of Satpanna, experiencing the arising and falling away, is different from the Sattvathakami experience the arising and falling away. The arising and falling away never change, but the understanding is more about that. And if there is no understanding of the danger of the arising and falling away of reality, can there be, even before becoming Sotapanna, can there be higher degree of letting go so that it can let go wrong understanding absolutely when it's time for the enlightenment? This is the same as Sotapanna knows that there are conditions for attachment and anger and so on, and mana and so on, because what has been eradicated is only wrong understanding, never experienced the nature of that and the nature of the Four Noble Truths at all.
And Ajahn, these higher degrees of understanding that come with the different stages of enlightenment, they are obtained, or they happen because there is a deeper understanding of conditioned realities that appear.
And only when it appears to Vipassana jhana, because just thinking, considering, developing understanding is not the moment of the regular experience, which is Vipassana jhana. Because
And I was going to say the deeper understanding of conditioned realities as they appear means a deeper understanding of the true nature or characteristic of different realities.
and one can understand the difference between the first Vipassana jhana and the other higher too. It's only that, see, it's not strong enough. And in a day, if it no condition to apply it to the truth of what is there now, it's impossible for Panya to develop. That's why even Sotapanna takes time, different, whether one or more life or 1, 2 or 3 years, depending on conditions. Why they not all together become Sakatagami all at once.
And Jonathan, I understand that you're asking particularly about the three characteristics, but Ajahn also mentioned just now about deeper understanding of Lopa by different levels of Arya also, for example. She was saying that the Sotapanna does not see the danger of Lopa as say an anagami?
Well, when we talk about understanding the danger of lopa, that tends to be in the context of samatha. But in vipassana, it's the conditioned nature that is the danger. And so it doesn't depend on whether it's wholesome or unwholesome mental factor. It's all dhammas are equally seen as being unsatisfactory because of their conditioned nature, not because of their jati.
Ajahn, I thought I heard you mention just now that a Sotapanna does not understand the danger of lopa as much as she could or he could. Is that correct? Ajahn?
We can't hear you, Ajahn.
Ajahn, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I didn't turn on now. You see that, does anyone see the danger of ignorance now?
Me, not at all, Ajahn.
See, but listening to the truth because of understanding the benefit of understanding what is there now. See, we don't have to say to speak out, but it's there. That's why there is moment of listening to the truth. So Dhamma is so very, very deep. That's why one can say, I see the danger of dopa, but at moment of vipassana jnana, is there at that moment understanding the danger of lopa or the danger of sankhara dhamma arising and falling away? Not yet, see. Because how can one understand how much accumulation of wrong understanding attachment to such wrong understanding? But from developing understanding little by little, no one can stop the condition for panya when it's time for the penetration of the truth, when the truth show up as one reality at a time. See, is that moment seeing the danger of lopa? Because lopa is not the object yet, right? That's why we have to have careful thinking, considering about the truth, that before panya of different degrees can arise, it needs conditions for its arising. For the Putuchana, who hasn't eradicated the wrong understanding yet, does that person see the danger of ignorance and wrong understanding? Enough, little, or more, depending on the accumulation. For now, we talk about what is there just to understand the absolute truth by different degrees of understanding, from Putuchana to experience Vipassana and to become Sotapanna. And Sotapanna is so truthful to the truth, but even that is experienced and has been eradicated. But the attachment, the clinging, which has been accumulated, is still there. It's there, appearing to be object of understanding of different objects, because lopa attached to any object. And when it's there, it's the proof whether is there any or enough letting go. It let go the idea of self, for sure, never to arise again. But condition for attachment is there to show up that it's still there. By then, it's the development of understanding when it is vipassana, different degrees, and when after sotapanna, the arising and falling away, which is vipassana, is there of that on that object. To understand that even that is not permanent at all, just very temporary. Even right now, we think that what is there is not there anymore. So, but there is still clinging to that object, and even one knows that it's not more. So, clinging to what? With ignorance, taking it for something permanent, but it cannot eradicate the idea or attachment to that. So, it depends on the different levels of panya to see better and better of the arising and falling away of what is there. For anagami, see, for arahata, and for sotapanna, sotapanna still have condition for clinging attachment to sensuous object in daily life. See, to be known more that even that is so dangerous because for the person who is not sotapanna cannot understand the danger of the arising and falling away, the impermanence of what is there now. But what about the degree of understanding? Enough to let go? What about the person who listened to the teachings many years until death? What about letting go? Depending on conditions. That is why, even that is as it is, the clinging to that which hasn't been letting go to the end has to take time from Sotapanna to Sakatagami to Anagami and to Arahanta.
So, Chan, it is, as Jonathan says, it's about the better understanding of conditioned dhammas as conditioned dhammas. Between a Sotapanna and say Anagami, is better understanding about Loka as just a conditioned dhamma, right?
Panya of Sotapanna is not Panya of Sakatagami, not Panya of Anagami, not Panya of Arahata, right? Even experience the same object. Otherwise, there must be Arahata after experience the truth at once. But the truth is not that. Clinging is not wrong understanding at all. Clinging clings no matter what. It clings whenever it's conditioned to arise. That's why to eradicate clinging is to eradicate the conditions for its arising, which is ignorance. And ignorance arises with many things different. For example, sensuous object, and even it's not sensuous object, it's there. It it does not appear. How can it be eradicated? We talk about lopa, it doesn't mean that just talk about it, but not know when it's there. But talk about it in order to know it, to understand it when it's there. So as Sotapanna still have lopa and panya, which has experienced the truth, develop just to know that no matter what is the object, it's just that which arises and falls away. And that is yata prinya. See, after vipassana jnana, it means that just directly experience so clear, very short, that is not enough. It has to be there at other moment after that, whatever is there. Developing panya begins from then on as parinya. Experience it with that which has been experienced, the truth, as vipassana jnana. So the understanding of the development of that object is different from the person who hasn't been directly experienced that as Sotapanna at all. The way is to letting go attachment and ignorance, which clings to like Asya.
And for the Sotapanna, there are still the Vipalasas taking what is foul for what Asubha, what is for being beautiful, and what is dukkha for being sukha, not of any wrong view, but because of the clinging to sense objects when there's pleasant taste, attachment instantly. So even though there has been the direct understanding of the impermanence of conditioned realities, and there is the understanding of the danger by a jnana of whatever arises and falls away, but still because of clinging, the understanding is not great enough yet to eradicate all sensuous clinging. So that understanding of the danger is not as great as the understanding of the Arahat, great enough to completely eradicate all clinging and all ignorance.
And
So
that
the
taking,
understanding.
and that taking of what is not beautiful for beautiful and what is dukkha,
Foul.
sukha, is indication of lack yet to be developed understanding of conditioned
Right.
nature of
Right. So the understanding of the danger of realities has to develop on and on. Like now, it's just thinking about what arises and falls away is dangerous, not the understanding, the Vipassana jnana, which has understood the impermanence of realities and understood the danger of that which arises and falls away. And when all wrong view has been eradicated, then that understanding of the danger of what is conditioned and no self to be involved at all, even stronger. And when there is no more taking what is foul for not being foul, or what is unsatisfactory for satisfactory, even greater wisdom required. So the understanding has to develop on and on and on, different degrees, but same realities to be known. And it all comes back to what is conditioned right now, which is foul and dangerous and all these things, but the understanding isn't strong enough to appreciate it when it's a pleasant taste. It's just taken for being a pleasant taste. There's no understanding of the danger of that pleasant taste, which falls away instantly and is just the object of clinging again and again.
And I think that answers Jonathan's original question. It does show, to me, it does show that the understanding of the three lakshanas has to be different and is more in the case of Aryas with higher understanding.
Yes, I think that in the line of Jonathan's question, eradicating wrong view is not the same as fully understanding anatta. I think that was his question, right?
To my understanding, the characteristic of anatta refers to the uncontrollable nature of realities. And this is not yet fully understood by the Sotapanna, even though all tendency to take conditioned reality or for something other than they are has been eradicated. But the understanding of conditioned realities as anicca, as dukkha, as anatta is not yet fully developed, and it continues, that understanding continues to be developed by the Sotapanna and the different levels of enlightenment, persons of different levels of enlightenment, until just prior to final enlightenment. And as I understand it, it's one of those three characteristics that is the gateway. It's the understanding of one of those three characteristics that becomes the gateway, the so-called gateway to liberation. I don't know what the Pali for that is. I'm referring to something I've I've come across in the Visuddhimagga. But the important question, I think, that I was wanting to raise was the difference between having a wrong view of realities and or having no wrong view of realities and the understanding of the characteristic of anatta.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question because no wrong view, it means the understanding of not self and understand.
It means, yes, it means not mistaking realities for something that they are not. I mean, wrong view of self is one aspect of wrong view.
What other aspects?
Wrong view as such is encompasses more than just the notion of a self. So
What else
it's
encompasses?
well, cause and result, for example, not understanding cause and result.
Well, do you mean
mistaking
not understanding that things are conditions? That's what you mean?
That would another way of putting it, yes.
But that's like a synonym of not understanding not self, because if you take things as self, is because you cannot see the conditioning nature of them.
Roti, can we say that the Sotapanna has no more wrong view because the understanding of the three characteristics and therefore the experience of Nibbana, the understanding of the three characteristics is strong enough to then experience Nibbana and then thereby eradicating wrong view. But the understanding about the conditioned nature needs to go on, develop.
The conditioned nature means what?
Of realities means perhaps more deeper understanding about, as you're saying, discussing with Jonathan about how different dhammas are conditioned. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there are a lot of perhaps here, in this topic.
Yeah, it will be and will continue to be perhaps, and even if we get right the right answer, right explanation, there will still be doubt. So I think that's why Ajahn often always reminds us to understand what we can understand now and to be concerned about that.
I think that if we begin again to study just one word at a time, for example, the three characteristics, can the three be separated, divided?
No, Ajahn, they cannot be separated.
No matter what is there, with what level of panya or what angle, or what aspect, for example, is life dukkha, or is it not permanent, or is it no control, not under anyone's control, because actually there's no one at all. So it's just one thing with three characteristics, cannot be separated at all. They are there because whatever is not permanent is dukkha, and what is not is anatta, because everyone would like to have it pleasant, permanent, but it's not that way. That's why it's a dukkha, the absolute dukkha. Nobody can change that, which just arise to appear and then gone instantly, never to arise again. This is the understanding which will gradually eliminate the idea of self little by little. So even they are there, one reality has three characteristics. Dukkha, because it is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. That's why it depends on what you have accumulation to consider it by way of dukkha or by way of anicca or by way of anatta right now. See, it's now dukkha for some people. Is it not permanent at all? It's just so very temporary. And for the other, uncontrollable. It cannot be controlled actually because there's no one at all. It has its conditions for its arising and then fall away. See, just one reality with three aspects. So it depends on the accumulation, whether the person now understand by way of anicca, by way of dukkha, or by way of anatta. May I ask, Kun Sukin,
Yes, Achan, please.
for you, what? Anicca or dukkha or anatta?
I it is anatta because from you we hear a lot about anatta.
See, and it accumulated from now and on and on. That's why even the reality appears just right now, no matter what. It has three characteristics, depending on the accumulation of that person to take it for what? Anicca, or dukkha, or anatta. That's why it does mean that one see only anicca, and then later on one has to see the anatta, and later on to understand the dukkha. It depends on the accumulation of that which arises and falls away. Just the word arises and fall away condition what kind of thought? Anicca, or dukkha, or anatta. That's why understanding that it cannot be separated. It's three characteristics. That's why now even we heard a lot about the truth, but as long as it does not appear yet as it is, show up as it is, that the nature of it is just as it is, it cannot be moment of having more precise understanding or sharp enough to let it go, never cling to it. But it's impossible because of the great accumulation of akusala. That's why panya, right understanding, understand the truth. No one can do anything. Only panya, which arises, let go wrong understanding and ignorance and attachment, little by little. So there's so much akusala, and what should be the first, which has to be eradicated, it has to be wrong understanding with panya, with avijja and tanha arising together. See, when there's right understanding, at that moment, no wrong understanding, no attachment, and no ignorance. But how many moments are there in the circle of samsara? See, that's why we don't underestimate how much ignorance is there. So, not experienced directly, not vipassana jnana yet. So one knows that it needs more conditions for the development to understand the truth. Just for those who are truthful to the truth. The other they don't mind at all, no matter to die or to be born or to be happy, pleasant or unpleasant. It doesn't matter for them, but actually it's this they don't know at all because there must be pain and unpleasant moment in life. That's why understanding the nature of anatta, see, and when it's such this, is it satisfactory? Not at all. Dukkha, because of its just very short appearing and then gone, never to return again. And this can be directly experienced. That's why we learn to understand it more and more and more for panya to be able to let go the hindrance which covers up the truth of it little by little until it appears to only panya of that degree as it is just the first time, and how much ignorance and attachment and wrong understanding which has taken whatever it's there as something of self all the time can be letting go completely impossible. That's why there can be the understanding of how much ignorance is there. Even when that appears, see, to what? To panya only, or just there are other moments of ignorance too, unknown. That's why, what about sanya? It is not the object. What about the feeling? It's not the object. So how can it present itself as it is, as nothing? But feeling can be object of experiencing, of panya, of vipassana, when it shows up as it is. No expectation. What would be the object for vipassana at that very moment to experience at all? Even right now, it's exactly the same. Who knows what would be next moment, next process? Impossible. So everything in life just is the same, but depend on understanding, whether there is understanding or there's no understanding at all, or there is some little understanding, beginning to understand better and better from hearing again and considering again, but they do not appear yet. So panya of that degree is not as clear as when it develops to let go whatever is there. Otherwise, what about it is there but no panya? It must be just like now. Touching, hardness is there now, no panya. But when it is vipassana jnana, one object at a time as it is, whether it's feeling or whether it is experiencing or whether it is hardness, who knows? Because it hasn't arisen yet. It shows its anotherness all the time, but not enough. That's why just listening is not enough until there is the understanding of the different moment of not only listening or understanding, not only intellectual understanding, but it's the moment of understanding that now, beginning to understand it with awareness. No doubt about what is meant by awareness. It's there with right understanding of it, which is different from moment when it's there and there's no understanding at all, as now or any time when there's no understanding. There can be just thinking about it, but no understanding of its nature. That's why the understanding develops on and on and on and on, from putushana to be kalayanamitta, to be sotapanna, to be skatakami, anagami, arahata. The object is the same, but panya is different. So for putuchana, not only ignorance, not only attachment, not only conceit, many, all the time, from moment to moment, are there as not understanding, even one as anatta. But having heard about it, some idea about it, and more understanding, intellectual, that without letting go, it's impossible for whatever now appears can show up its truth as it is. And without listening, considering, it's impossible to understand what is there, which is so very subtle. So has to be so truthful to the truth, understanding how much is there now. And once it's there as vipassana jnana, is that enough? Comparing to the accumulation of akusala, attachment, and wrong understanding. Even now, see, many things around, see, right or wrong, does it show up at just one at a time, as it is, one process, more process, before it can appear as something which is there with the idea of self, or even no idea of self. It has to be just like that. But the idea of self has been eradicated completely, never to arise again, because of understanding, eradicate the anosya, latent tendency of wrong view and doubt. But what about the accumulation of other unwholesomeness, kilesa, attachment is there. So Sotapanna and those who are Sot Ariya Pukala must be very so truthful to the truth. Even becoming a Sotapanna is not enough to let go attachment because it's there by condition. So no doubt for Sotapanna, no matter what degree of akusala is there by conditions. And it has to begin before becoming a Sotapanna, before any level of vipassana can arise. It has to be from now, whatever is there, little by little, to be sharp enough to understand the truth that has been learned from listening, considering. It does mean that the three characteristics change, but right understanding is keener, letting go more and more. We used to say there is lopa, but where is it? Is it the object yet? If it's not, how can it be known? How can it be eradicated? If you experience something only once, can they be conditioned to think more about it? Or that which has been experienced more, conditioned more experiencing of it by conditions, pakatu panicaya pajya. And that's why we learn about pajya, to understand better about no one and no self. The way the path works must be so very subtle, little by little, unknowingly developing by other Cetasikas as Sankhara-Dhamma.
Achan, you just said by other Chetasikas as Sankhara Dhamma. Did you mean Sankhara Khanda or Sankhara Dhamma?
Sankhara Khanda, because Sankhara Dhamma includes everything which is condition arising and falling away. Panya is Sankhara Dhamma, but it's Sankhara Khanda as well, because it's not Sanya Khanda, not Vedana Khanda. If nothing show up as it is, can there be right understanding of that? That's why in Tipitaka it says that Dhamma appears to Panya when it's Satipatthana. But when it's not Satipatthana, it's just felt thinking about it. Whatever is now is object of studying, developing understanding by conditions.
Can I ask a question, Achan? I was thinking about a few days ago on the board discussion meeting. You mentioned to Achan Anup about compiling talks for beginners. What did you mean, Achan? What did you
Say it
have in
again,
mind?
please. Say it again, please.
You were talking to Kunanop about compiling talks and for beginners to hear, to listen to.
What do you mean by compiling?
I mean, I think you were talking about because it was between you and Achananop, so I'm not sure what you were referring to, but it sounded like you were saying that um, sometimes some of these recorded talks are too difficult for beginners, so should find certain topics or particular talks where beginners can appreciate.
And what could Anup talk about?
And he didn't say anything. He said, yes, he would look for something.
So what is difficult in the
Uh,
beginning to talk about?
I mean, for me, I'm a beginner. We are all beginners, but I was wondering because I, I, I would like to help some people, and I think that it's very easy to misunderstand the Dhamma if there's no the right way to express it. So I thought that what I heard that day, you were talking about saying, bringing and talking about certain aspects of the Dhamma that is more easy for the beginner, to someone who has not heard the Dhamma, not a beginner like us, but someone who has not heard the Dhamma, to begin to perhaps appreciate.
Usually, people would like to hear more and more, right, about such and such, without deep understanding of the reality of that word. For example, Dhamma, see, Anatta, see, only two words. Is it clear enough for them to understand what is there? It's there as it is. It cannot be changed. But they do not understand enough of the truth of that word. For example, there is seeing right now. It's so very simple. But what about the truth? Very, very deep. Because what is seeing? See, who knows that it's not I, or it's not anyone at all, and it's different from that which is seen. And if they do not have such clear understanding from the very beginning, how can they understand more about different words? Impossible. That's why only one word should be should be considered carefully, so that there can be firm understanding of the truth, never changed from the very beginning. That's why when we talk with the Hindi, see, we talk about just one reality for them to really understand it, so firm, never change at all. For example, what is Dhamma? You don't have to go away to look for it at all. It's here and now, just like what you heard when you talk about the virtues of the Dhamma. Sawakato, the Buddha taught. Santitiko, it can be experienced right now. It can be known. It can be understood. Akaliko, anytime, because there is a reality there to be object of developing understanding. Ehipasiko, don't go away to other thing, to other word. But what about now? It's there to understand that it is different and it's not the same one. Only once, only very short, and then gone. To have them to be to consider whether it's true or not. This is very important to have firm understanding. Subject never change, and Adidana, it has to be that it can be known. It depends on conditions too, to be interested or not to understand it, because it's just for those who have interest to understand the truth. That's why we can talk from one word to another word and understand it deeper and deeper. Like Dhamma, see, we can say that, we can think of that. But what about the characteristic of that which is Dhamma? A characteristic, only one characteristic, never mixed. And it is there because there are conditions for its arising. Nobody can make it arise at all. And it's gone completely. Just have such understanding from the very beginning that it can be directly experienced until there's no doubt about it. No wrong view, which take it for I of something all the time. Just the word Dhamma and Anatta. And everything is like that, no matter it's Lopa, Dosa, or whatever, it's conditioned. It's there, and then no more, never to arise again. And what do you call it? Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta. From the very beginning. Is it the first noble truth? See, what else is the truth? Absolute truth. It is this, to be known by the fourth noble truth, the way Panya develops little by little to understand that even that is not self, but so many, many realities to be known. Like now, Sanya. See, who knows it? That which marks and remember. Without Sanya, can there be anything as is heard? By thinking, and what conditions such and such thinking? Not just Sanya, also other Sankhara Khanda, right understanding or wrong understanding, attachment, ignorance, and whatever, all are here. So, if one goes away from whatever is there now, impossible to understand the truth, which is now arising and falling away all the time. And this is a beginner, the beginning to understand the truth, not by the difficult word or so many words, but just about one word, Dhamma, Anatta.
Thank you, Ajahn. Time is
Dika,
up.
we can continue next time. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ajahn.
you.
So,
Very good.